Hey friends, I hope you all are doing well. Today I want to talk to you about an astrology topic. So, lately, of course, there's been this huge resurgence in astrology, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of this astrology um, thoughts and modalities kind of all floating around. And I think that this is something that's really, really important because everyone talks about how wonderful astrology is. And everyone talks about how empowering astrology can be. And I completely agree. I think astrology is wonderful and I think astrology is empowering. However, I also think astrology is incredibly powerful and specific because I am talking more than just simple sun sign astrology here. I am talking about full and complete natal astrology using Placidius charts within a Western astrology modality, looking at your sun, moon, rising, your natal core, looking at your inner planets, your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars, looking at your two social planets, your Saturn, your Jupiter, looking at your outer planets and what houses, more importantly, those outer planets are in, which would be Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, and then, of course, the asteroids like Chiron, Pallas Athena, Lilith, Juno Hera, Hestia Vestia, right? These asteroids that we also incorporate. We have the four cardinal directions within the chart, the IC, the MC, the AC, the DC. And these are all aspects that are included in a full comprehensive natal chart reading. Some of you may have had your charts read before. Some of you may use free resources out there. There's plenty of free websites where you can chart your own natal chart. What I am seeing that I feel like is a little dangerous, is a little questionable on whether or not this is really what we need to be doing, is I've seen Facebook ads, I've seen Wish ads. I've not actually seen anyone like in real life with this that I'm aware of, but it's essentially a necklace with your complete natal chart on the necklace. And I saw this on Facebook last night, I think, and I think it was being marketed as like a soul necklace because your natal chart is essentially kind of this cosmic fingerprint of what makes you up according to the planets and the stars, what energies you were born into and under. And I think that's something really special and really intimate. And I also think it's super cool that people are learning more about astrology and educating themselves more about astrology. But there is also dangers with this astrology as well. And I'm not saying that astrology itself is innately dangerous. I'm saying other people having access to your cosmic fingerprint, in my opinion, is innately dangerous. And here's why. So some of the aspects in astrology, not so much, right? And when it comes to this topic, because I'm talking about other people looking at your, let's say your natal chart necklace, right? Or just even your natal chart. A few of the students in the astrology class, I have even told them like, hey, it's awesome that you're really excited about learning this astrology, but sharing your personal natal chart on a public social media platform is not wise. And the reason for that is because you can absolutely curse someone using their own natal chart. You absolutely can harm someone physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally using their natal chart. And this is something I have not seen anyone else talking about. There's lots of various wonderful videos educating people on what these planets mean, what these houses mean, you know, different directions within the chart and how we apply these, or planets within certain houses of the zodiac. That's wonderful. But no one is talking about the dangers of this. And like I said, I don't think astrology itself is innately dangerous per se. I think that your personal natal chart is intimate, private, personal information. And if you go to an astrologer and get your natal chart read, that's one thing. But I'm talking about giving your personal natal data and natal chart out willy-nilly, like wearing a necklace or posting it on social media. And here's why, basically. So different planets are to represent different facets of ourselves. So for instance, Mercury, the planet Mercury in your natal chart, essentially is all about how you communicate and how you learn. Okay? So that's not necessarily super ominous, right? That's your learning style, that's your communication style. Depending on, excuse me, depending on what zodiac Mercury is in, that is the lens at how we look at how you communicate. So just for a quick example, if we have Pisces, the emotional, aquatic, dreamy sign, and that's where your Mercury is in, we're applying that layered together. And then you look at the house as well. So it's kind of three parts, three different layers. You have the planet, which is the what. So for Mercury's case, this would be communication. You have the zodiac, which is basically the how. How is this happening? So if it's Mercury and Pisces, you are communicating like a disassociative, dreamy, aquatic, sensitive sign. And then the house is where this energy is manifesting. So let's say your Mercury's in Pisces in the fourth house. The fourth house rules family, basically, right? So that's where that energy is going to show up the most for you. Now, that concept being discussed, we have our what, which is the planets or the asteroids or whatever we're looking at. We have our how, which is looking at the zodiac wheel. And we have our where, which is looking at the wheel of houses. And all of this is layered into a natal chart. A witch or a practitioner who is versed in astrology and who understands astrology and who's also a spellcrafter can look at your natal chart and can conjure things upon you based upon your natal chart and can essentially create a curse perfectly constructed for you based upon your natal chart. So let's talk about some of these planets. So the first ones that come to my mind, Mercury, that's communication. You can get creative with that maybe, and you could curse someone to mess up their communication. But I'm more or less talking about planets like Saturn, planets like Pluto, and also the asteroid Chiron. I've seen a lot of articles floating around about Chiron lately on Facebook too, and people kind of being awakened to this sense of the wounded healer. Chiron as an asteroid essentially represents our innermost traumas and wounds. That's what Chiron represents. So depending on what house Chiron is in, right? Because remember the houses represent where. So depending on what house Chiron is in, that's essentially where your trauma and your baggage is. That is intimate information. That is not something that needs to be shared publicly on social media, unless that's what you want to do, right? Let's say your Chiron is in the first house. That's the house of personal autonomy and self-confidence in your physical body. A witch looking at this can see that you have wounds and traumas in your self-confidence and in your physical autonomy. And then magic can be crafted specifically for that sort of target, right? Or let's say Chiron is in your 10th house. The 10th house is the house of work, career, occupation, right? That would be very powerful to curse someone with more trauma, with ill fortune, ill will within their works and careers, that they will never prosper. And that's where your Chiron is. So cursing someone using their natal chart can be so incredibly powerful because it's so personalized already to you. And it's already your astrological cosmic DNA. And so someone working with that is just going to make that curse so much stronger. So that's Chiron. Saturn. Saturn represents essentially obstacles, restrictions, and blockages in your chart. And of course, the house is going to tell us where we have these blockages. Let's say for you, you have Saturn in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of partnerships, right? It's often kind of thought as the house of like marriage and romantic partnerships and sexuality, and it's a very complex house, but in a nutshell, it's basically kind of the marriage house or the romantic partnerships house. If your Saturn is there, that's showing that we have obstacles and blockages within our love life. And not that it is impossible for you to ever have a meaningful, long-term romantic and sexual relationship, but that it might be a little bit more difficult and you might have a little bit more cosmic resistance navigating that space than someone who doesn't have a Saturn there. Now imagine if someone who did not like you or who wanted to harm you and who knew their astrology, saw your chart, is looking at this and is like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. You know, this person already has all this natural blockages and influence stopping them from finding real, true, meaningful love. Let me throw some magic in that direction. And let me make sure that this person never feels completely whole with anyone and that they always have this dark seed of abandonment growing from within them so they can never fully connect to someone. You guys have to think about stuff like this. And I understand too that for a lot of us, maybe we're not thinking about this because if you don't know, you don't know. But once you know, you can do better, is my thing. Pluto is essentially what is dead in our chart. Okay? Like, some of these planets and some of these asteroids hold a lot of power. And I'm not saying that you should guard your natal chart under lock and key. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying you can't talk about your natal chart, your personal natal chart, but do so very intentionally because you are sharing very personal, very intimate information. And I think that this kind of light and love new age concept around astrology is really damaging because it's not actually educating people or informing them of proper astrological etiquette in a way, if you will, because like I said, this is just sensitive information. And someone who really wanted to hurt you magically, astrally, could do so very easily based upon doing a working over your natal chart. So this is just, like I said, food for thought. This is my recommendation. This is stuff that I have seen kind of going around, these keychains and necklaces and rings with your complete natal chart. Or I've also seen a lot of advertisements kind of pushing and catering towards mothers of getting like their children's natal charts on a necklace or a piece of jewelry. I've also seen people getting like their sun, moon, rising on like rings or whatever. I'm not saying that you shouldn't purchase this sort of or buy into this kind of consumerism or not purchase these sort of products. I'm saying do so purposefully and intentionally, and just also understand that it's personal information. And if you're going to kind of showcase that personal information, you need to make sure that you also have protection set in place. Because like I said, it's very easy for a witch who's versed in astrology, who understands these associations, to take one look at your chart and be able to craft the perfect disaster catered customizably, perfectly, and just for you. So I'm going to leave you guys with that thought. And I don't want you guys to feel like I'm talking at you about this. I just feel very, very passionate about it as a witch and as an astrologer. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents on this whole natal chart jewelry. So until next time, guys, bye.